What's happening, guys? Back with another video. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Anthony Joshua's next upcoming title defense. As you guys know, he's going to be fighting Kubrat Pulev. It's a fight that has been rescheduled, that was originally supposed to happen back in, I believe it was late 2017. I actually did a breakdown and prediction for that fight back when it was first set to happen, and yeah, the fight's been rescheduled. It's once again a mandatory title defense for the IBF. Kubrat Pulev has been up there in those rankings for a long time now, and yeah, his title shot has basically eluded him due to injuries and pullouts and whatnot. So yeah, the fight's officially going to happen now, apparently, and yeah, let's hope that there's no pullouts this time. Now, you guys will recall, if you've been following my channel and if you watched my original breakdown for this fight, I thought the fight was a mismatch. I thought Anthony Joshua was going to stop Kubrat Pulev, knock him out inside 5 rounds. That was my prediction, and my rationale behind that prediction at the time was, look, Kubrat Pulev does not have the attributes that Anthony Joshua hasn't dealt with before, in the sense that he'd already beaten Vladimir Klitschko by that point, and Kubrat Pulev was pushing 40. I mean, the dude was in his late 30s already by that point, and that was 2 years ago. So, you marry that with the fact that he'd been relatively inactive and wasn't a noted puncher. I didn't really see him having much of a chance against Joshua, and I felt that Joshua would probably knock him out within 5 rounds. I had a feeling it would turn out to be a shootout, kind of like the Pulev versus Klitschko fight did. And yeah, we know how that ended. Klitschko ended up knocking out Pulev in 5 rounds. I expected a similar kind of fight. Don't get me wrong, I think that the version of Klitschko who Pulev fought was definitely a much better and more dangerous fighter than Anthony Joshua. It's just that I think that Pulev had aged quite a bit by that point, and I didn't really give him much of a chance. I didn't think that going into that fight, I didn't think Pulev stood much of a chance against Joshua, if I'm being honest. Now, this is a couple of years later, a lot has happened since then, and has my opinion at all changed on this fight? Well, let's discuss it, shall we? So let's talk about what both guys have done since. So since that fight, Anthony Joshua has done quite a bit actually. I mean, he's had several fights. He of course had the fights against Joseph Parker and Alexander Povetkin, and of course Carlos Takam. All three of those fights, he showed a lot of flaws. In fact, in all three of those fights, he looked pretty bad at times. Against Takam, he got his nose busted and ended up winning the fight with a premature stoppage. And just the elusive movements on the outside and the short, stocky, bob and weave head movement, and just kind of rugged, fighting small approach from Takam seemed to confuse Joshua a little bit. When he fought Parker, personally, I thought he lost that fight. But it was a close fight, but I thought he lost personally. When he fought Povetkin, he was buzzed quite badly a couple of times early on in the fight. However, when Povetkin started to slow down, I mean, Povetkin was also pushing 40, let's not forget. And when he started to slow down, Joshua caught up with him and Joshua knocked him out. So he came from behind, in my opinion, to knock out Povetkin. And then, of course, famously, he lost his title in the shock upset to Andy Ruiz, which he recently, about a month ago, he recently reacquired his title in a very impressive performance. He regained his title by outboxing and pretty much schooling Andy Ruiz. So a lot has happened with Anthony Joshua. There's been ups, there's been downs. There's been a lot of intriguing moments in his career since that fight was first set to happen against Pulev. As for Pulev, he's fought twice since that fight. Now, he took about a year and a half off after the Joshua fight got cancelled due to injuries and whatnot, and he came back and fought Hughie Fury in Bulgaria, and I was really surprised by Pulev in that fight. I thought he showed a lot of spirit, a lot of renewed spirit in that fight, because even though he was like 37, 38, he still managed to wind back the clock, and he actually really systematically dismantled Hughie Fury. He pretty much whipped Hughie Fury's ass, despite the fact that Fury was like 10 years younger, was the quicker guy, was taller, longer, and Pulev to me was able to just systematically break down and edge forward with the jab and completely dismantle Hughie Fury. And I thought that he completely punked Hughie Fury in the ring, if I'm being honest. And I thought that that was a very good performance. a few months later, he went on to fight Bogdan Dinu, which was a great fight. Pulev had a lot of trouble. He got cut in the fight, he got stunned several times. But again, he showed a lot of fighting spirit to me, and he fought back, and he managed to brave the cut, and he managed to outlast Bogdan Dinu, and he stopped him in 7 rounds. And I thought that was a decent performance. But Bogdan Dinu, I don't really rate as a fighter. I think he had very low stamina, didn't really have a great chin. So to me, those were two good victories, but they weren't exactly world class victories. Don't get me wrong, I was impressed by his performance against Fury, and I was impressed by his heart and his courage and spirit and motivation against Bogdan Dinu. So there's a lot to like about Kubrat Pulev. And look, I've always rated Kubrat Pulev as a fighter. I mean, I followed his career from the beginning. I remember watching some of his early fights on Sauerland cards and whatnot. I even remember back when he fought Michael Sprott. Do you guys remember that fight? I remember watching that fight live, and I remember watching so many of his fights live on the come up. He was on a couple of Povetkin undercards. He was always like a Sauerland heavyweight undercard attraction. And has my opinion changed on this fight? Now, obviously, I rate both guys very highly. I've been following Pulev since the beginning of his career. Anthony Joshua, obviously, I've sung his praises on here, despite the fact that he's had some ups and downs. But I really have to say that while I don't think it's as clear a mismatch as I did the first time, I still think that Anthony Joshua will win the fight, and I still think he will win the fight by stoppage. Now, what could Kubrat Pulev do? Now, let's just imagine for a second that this was a younger Kubrat Pulev. Let's imagine that it was a prime Kubrat Pulev. So I'm talking Kubrat Pulev from before the Klitschko fight. So let's say 2011 to 2014 Kubrat Pulev. I think that version of Kubrat Pulev, in my opinion, was by far the better fighter than he is now. I think that version of Pulev would have had a very good chance of giving a great fight to Anthony Joshua. I'm not saying he would definitely beat Anthony Joshua. I still would make Joshua the favourite, but I just think that a prime Kubrat Pulev, who was a lot quicker and a lot more athletic than he is now. If you go and watch some of Pulev's early fights and watch some of his fights recently, you'll see that he is nowhere near as fast, as quick, as agile, or as elusive as he used to be. When he was younger, he was definitely a lot harder to hit. Very, very rarely did he get hit clean in his prime. He was always a very one of the things that always impressed me about Pulev was his movement and his dexterity. For a heavyweight, big guy, about 6'4", but he can move very well. He had a very, very fast and accurate left jab. His jab was one of the best jabs in the division. It isn't as good as it used to be, the jab. He also had a very quick, surprising right hand. He had good movement, good balance, good fundamentals. Good tight guard, a very, very upright fighter. But he knew how to pull off that upright style, and very good body puncher. Through lots of straight combinations. He would lead off with a right hand and finish with the jab, kind of like Sergey Kovalev or Golovkin. Very solid European fundamental fighter. And I think that at his prime, prior to the Klitschko fight, he would have been able to give Joshua a very good fight. Would have been able to confuse him with the jab. Would have been able to maybe outbox him for a while. But I think Klitschko, you know, um, I mean, like the Klitschko fight, I was gonna say, I think that Joshua would draw him into a fight and would probably knock Pulev out. Pulev does have a tendency to get drawn in, whereas it wouldn't really suit him. Even against Hughie Fury, he was winning that fight easily. However, he gave up some free shots midway through that fight, which almost cost him it. But and then again, we saw that against Bogdan Dinu too. I mean, if Pulev had just kept his cool early on in that fight and just kept everything off the jab, he probably wouldn't have got in trouble in that fight. Probably wouldn't have got cut and wouldn't have got hurt. But it is what it is. He does get drawn into fights, and sometimes he's guilty of standing with his chin in the air with his hands down. He sometimes does that, and those are not things you can get away with against somebody as powerful a puncher as Anthony Joshua. Again, a prime Kubrat Pulev might have gotten away with it because of his speed and his movement, but the guy is 39 years old now. Okay, he's pushing 40, so he's not going to have the stamina to be able to fight at a fast-paced against somebody as dangerous and with the kind of ring presence as Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua also showed improved stamina in his last fight against Ruiz, where he moved around the ring very effectively for 12 rounds. Um, Kubrat Pulev used to be able to move like that when he was younger, but he's not young anymore. Okay, he's pushing 40. Pulev isn't going to be able to move as well as Anthony Joshua is in this fight. So I see Anthony Joshua winning the fight in terms of just being the more commanding presence in the ring. I think that Pulev will try and outbox him behind the jab and will try and give him some movement, but he'll find that Anthony Joshua himself can also move quite good. He'll find himself that if he gets drawn into a battle of the jabs, Joshua might actually have the better jab at this stage because Pulev, again, his jab just isn't as accurate or as snappy as it used to be. He doesn't have the punch resistance he used to have. He was hurt by Hughie Fury in one of the rounds. I think it was the eighth round. He got hurt with a right hand. Hughie Fury is not a puncher, at least not by Anthony Joshua standards. Like I said, he was hurt badly and cut by Bogdan has even less power than Hughie Fury from what I've seen. So this is going to be a fight, in my opinion, where I don't give Pulev much of a chance. I see it pretty much the same way as I saw the first fight, when it was first scheduled, and I'm picking Anthony Joshua to win by knockout. I think his lead left hook, his long right hand from distance will be too much for Pulev. I think he'll catch him. I think he'll knock Pulev out. I don't give Pulev much of a chance, so that's how I see this fight pretty much. If Pulev surprises me again, then wow, really big up to him. I mean, God bless both guys. I'm kind of looking forward to it though. I think it'll be entertaining while it lasts. Both of these guys are always entertaining, while the fights last. So let me know what you guys think anyway. I'm picking Joshua by knockout. Thanks for watching and God bless.